So the politically correct answers is AI will help understand the data, gather all this data that to be not biased by ethnic, region, locations, gender, and so on, to make the healthcare system look better. The non-political answer is it's all bullshit if it's on the hand of conglomerate again. Because basically, giving you an example of pharmaceutical aspect for healthcare, if today we have all these big pharmaceutical companies coming all together from their R&D research, they can all pull this data all together from different regions. They can prevent cancer. They can prevent Alzheimer. Because if they, it's like a village. You put all the resources together and you put all the fund together and you put all the heads and the brain together, AI will be a tool to speed up the process because that's what AI does.
Welcome to the ReThink Social Change podcast, where we talk about what truly moves the needle for equitable and inclusive societal progress. I'm your host, Ratiba Sharif. I've designed, learned from, and evaluated social change for 20 years on 4 continents. I share my own insights here, but mostly amplify the voices of global change makers. I randomly draw cards from the ReThink Social Change deck to spark and guide unscripted conversations with them that explore what works, what doesn't, and why. Join us for real talk and lessons you can apply to create truly transformative social initiatives. As technology speeds up and access to information grows, we may need new ways of thinking and doing. That's exactly why I'm excited to have Yasmina Kazitani with us today. Yasmina is not a social change practitioner, but she's a straight talker with an entrepreneurial mindset and a deep expertise in AI. Thought I'd get her perspective and explore how we could harness AI to accelerate social change. As Chief Marketing Officer at Interverse AI, founder of Space AI, and board member of the Blockchain Game Alliance, Yasmina is disrupting industries and pushing the boundaries of tech. This episode is a little different from our usual formats, no cards today. Instead, this is an exploratory conversation about the intersection of AI and social change, one where we discuss how these innovations can transform the way we approach real-world issues. Let's go join her. Yasmina Kazitani, thanks for joining me. So happy to have you.
Thanks for having me. Always a pleasure to be interviewed by a woman for a change.
That's good. We need more of those. Yasmina, so when I approached you, you're not a social change practitioner per se. You work in, I did a short intro, but you work on AI and many other things. It's a field that's fairly new, and to us who are not in it, it's also about understanding mostly how we can harness it. We don't develop AI or AI bots, but we can harness it to do our work better in terms of social change on issues of poverty alleviation, and going from agriculture all the way to the environment, etc. But so, if you were to explain what you do to people who know nothing about that field, how would you go about it?
I would probably simplify it like I'm talking to my mom or my kid. And most of the time, I try to explain this in a very simple way. It's I work to prepare your future. That's as easy as that, because then going into the details, people are like, but what is it? I'm like, anything that you haven't thought of yet, like, and you're gonna need it in the next 10 years. I'm currently working on it.
Okay. So it's things that we don't know of, but we can, for future thinkers and future seers, that's where you're at. You're 10 years ahead.
Yes, pretty much, kind of. I know some people will think, oh, this is pretentious, or what is she talking about? But through my career, basically, I came across things, and one that is very simplistic, at least for people in marketing, in business development and business data, is that now people are talking about, oh my God, data is very important. We can understand people. It's been hype for the last 3-4 years. This subject was one of the main concern in 2005, 2006. So this is how much advanced. So we were talking about how to utilize this data from emailing campaigns, from the first dashboards of
Yeah.
Facebooks and so on and so forth. So in the last 10 years, I've been working on how to analyze it and create this common channels or dashboards to make it happen and have this deep conversation on how we can mine this data, understand it. So to now, for me, it's like, okay, I'm already into the next things on beyond the data itself is how can this be used differently with all the new technology. And I don't want to go into further things because then I'm going to lose 90% of the
Lose
audiences.
that. Maybe the ideas will come back. The reason I contacted you was to the it was triggered by a few of the things that you've done recently. Looking, you work a lot on games as well, and gamification. I've in social change we've used games as experiential kind of evolution to model positive behaviors, for example, on governance issues, mostly targeting youth. We've used, I'm going to say early iterations of AI industry in e-learning and improving access to education or quality of education, where there could be. We've used mostly the telephone, the mobile phone. So, but when you think about social change, it's always been human driven, and technology is evolving very rapidly. And so I wanted to see, where does AI fit in the conversation about transforming very slow moving system with this technology that's moving so fast. So talk a little bit about the human versus non-human aspect. Maybe we'll delve more into that because I have other specific questions. And later on is like, how can AI serve the social change field, or those of us who work in international development, changing, social norms, teaching behaviors, etc.
I would probably start by saying AI is hyped. It's not what you think and what people have in their mind. So it's not going to take over the world. We're only touching the top of the iceberg because it's generative. Despite the fact that, they say all the large model of learning and whatever they want to call them are brilliant and predictive, unless, and I'm stating it very clearly, unless Amazon or Netflix or any other, platforms that I use frequently will predict beyond the basic prediction of what I want as a human being, then I will be like, yes, it has a conscience, it has a soul. Until then, we're still in the basic prediction. So I am not scared of it, to be honest. And I
Okay.
think human should not, because I lived through the era of brick and mortar. So my first job was in car manufacturing with a Japanese brand. And we were the first ones to have cameras in the rear. That was 20 years ago, guys. And they were the first one to use KPIs and all this beautiful word. And when we had the brick and mortars shops, it was funny because I remember I was like sitting in my office in Algiers and I got this delivery through the dinosaurs of FedEx at that time with packs and packs of books and booklet to give the local agency to build a website. We're still using website. We thought that website will be like revolutionary. We thought social media will be revolutionary.
Yeah.
Is it? No, it's just kind of like it's an addition. It's like, again, people have the tendency, human beings have the tendency to forget quickly history. History is not taught because it has to be taught. It is used as a reference in time. People, when, TV came, they were like, oh, it's going to take over radio. I still listen to the news on the radio rather than watch them on TV, guys.
Yeah.
I still kind of use my phone with the radio app on it because I travel extensively and I need to know what's going on back home in London. So that's kind of where we always have the tendency to go into the shiny things and say, oh, the rest of the world is going to kind of collapse. No, babe, it's not going to collapse. It's just your vision of the world, which is tiny. So basically, people need to understand that we're still driving. Well, we still, when I say it's human being, but then it's the conglomerate who are driving, and you are just a piece in their puzzle. in terms of, you are the product. AI is not, it's just the tool for them to understand you better, to manipulate you better, to make of you whatever you want, but they're not going to take your job right now. Because it still needs to be skilled, and you still have the skills, of thinking, of critical thinking, which the machine has not yet acquired.
Yeah. So that's very interesting because you said it does the soul. You spoke about the soul, and so consciousness. I know you've written recently on consciousness. Is it gonna direct us? I've been thinking of, does AI can it dream like humans? Because it's generative, can it really dream? Can we put all the possible dreams, kind of feed it that so that it can then generate a mix of those? And so that was questions that I kind of grapple with. But I think the first question is, does machine AI, so there's judgment, right? So human versus machine judgment. So I've heard a lot that AI likes empathy and moral judgment, right? It's a machine. It gives you what you asked for without worrying about any ethical concerns in the way it generates. So, but social change requires both, right? It requires empathy and moral judgment. So how can AI complement human decision making without losing the ethical considerations?
I would probably say that we need to understand that AI is very generic. And talking about, if we're talking about specifically OpenAI, it mimics you as a person. It mimics me as a person because it has the memory on. When I log in and I ask her to do some few things for me, she will remember my style, my way of thinking. So she's gonna be the mimic of me. So if I'm an ethical person and I say please and thank you, she will kind of put it in its algorithm to say, okay, this is how I'm gonna answer you. So again, it's only kind of giving us what we feed in it. When we talk about ethics, there is no machine today that has ethics because it's kind of governed by the GAFAs. GAFA do not have ethics. They don't care about you because they're running your data the way they want. They're selling it to third part for them to kind of push you to purchase things, to consume them. So the ethics comes from the users. When you know the importance of your data, then you will ask the conglomerate to change these models into a more mindful one, not the other way around.
Not the other way around. So you're saying that it's as good as we are, right? So AI will be as good as humans are. So it will potentially show the best in humans, and it can also show the worst
It
in
won't
humans.
show the best of the humans, to be honest, because the only thing that we are showing today is greediness as human being. So we are 99% of people, and that's legitimate. There is no judgment there. It's like, how do I make more money? If you go back to OpenAI and check what are all the requests, is like, how do I make more money? How do I post? It's all about money. Nothing is about how do I live happily? How do I reach the nirvana of, I don't care about materialistic things. If you go onto the OpenAIs or, onto Edel, or into Gemini, I would probably bet you now $1 million that it's only 0.001% people asking for such questions, which means that our mindset as human being is totally kind of like, unfortunately for us, driven by money and status, and the machine will mimic us again in doing such things.
Okay, so wow, that's a caution, right, for humans, and to be mindful about what it is that we also kind of input into that. We'll get whatever it is that we input in it. So that's really fascinating, and it brings me to thinking about it in a systems way, because we're increasingly, the challenges that we're confronting, the world is confronting, from climate change to even systemic poverty, inequalities, etc. We're seeing that we can't resolve them in silos. You can't work on agriculture without working on education, without talking to access, without talking about structural and systemic changes at institutional level, etc. So we've seen how AI has somehow disrupted our systems of functioning, of even working and generating information and content. If we could redesign social systems like education or healthcare, how would AI play that role in transforming it? How can it help us? Do you have any example where it has helped, maybe in health, or the potential of it for more for these kind of sectors?
Do you want the politically correct
I
answer?
want both. Let's
Okay.
have both.
So the politically correct answers is AI will help understand the data, gather all this
Right.
data that to be not biased by
Yeah.
ethnic, region, locations, gender, and so on, to make the healthcare system look better. The non-political answer is it's all bullshit if it's on the hand of conglomerate again. Because basically, giving you an example of pharmaceutical aspect for healthcare, if today we have all these big pharmaceutical companies coming all together from their R&D research, they can all pull this data all together from different region. They can prevent cancer. They can prevent Alzheimer. Because if they, it's like a village. You put all the resources together and you put all the fund together and you put all the heads and the brain together, AI will be a tool to speed up the process, because that's what AI does. It's kind of like your Excel sheets, X100, right? So imagine all these people with all the money that they make out of our health, put this together. So AI will be to the right functioning, it will be in the right place to digest this data, to give you graphs, because it's not intelligent enough to kind of do something, and we need still a human brain, but it will kind of analyze, make sure that you understand it, and it says, okay, for all the African, North African, South African, this is the in their DNA, this is kind of like the symptoms of XYZ that we can kind of use in their DNA, this strength into weakness of another ethnicity, you see?
Yeah.
And so on and so forth. I'm not a pharmacist or a
Yeah.
pharmaceutical person, but these are the logical things. Today, do they do that? No, because basically everyone and each of them want to sell more, because they
Yeah.
are business goal driven, not research driven for the good of humanity. Same for the education. Half of the population have to pay for the education, for the education of their kids, their grandchildren, and so on. And we are currently buying names of universities. We're not buying knowledge, because the transfer of knowledge is not really done properly. Most of the time when you go onto this big university is for the networking. It's a ticket to a higher networking. So when you talk about bringing AI from my perspective, and I've done a conference, in April, and I know that Qatar was really interested in it, is to have an AI, understanding all the kids, which means that you have a personal educator at the hand of your kids and they kind of interact with it. Because we have kids who are ADHD, who are kids who are like academic, and the classroom doesn't fit everybody. Again, I love this, the image of we are all different animals, and they want us, I'm a monkey, you're a panda, someone else in the room is like, a snake, a butterfly, and bird, whatever. And we are all asked to to kind of swim like the little fish. Well,
Yeah.
sorry, I can't. I
Yeah.
do understand I am not academic. I did kind of average like 90% of the population, but once I knew where like my strengths were, like I was thriving, but I had to figure it by myself when I went to uni rather than having someone helping me. And AI could digest this information to see the pattern into ADHD, from a gender, from an ethnic point of view, from a location point of view, and say, okay, Yasmina, you need like 4 notification to say, okay, you need to kind of, segment the work. I can't stay more than 30 minutes, otherwise my focus will go somewhere else. Whereas people will think, well, some other people who are more academic will kind of spend an hour, 2 hours reading the book without being, kind of bored or
Yeah.
like,
Or their mind wandering off. Yeah.
exactly. When I wonder and I'm like, oh God, okay. And then I will think of something else and my brain will bounce back and I will write something. So people will be like, yeah, but you don't understand. No, the point is you're not fully taking my full potential into use.
Right, right. So I can see in both example, be it healthcare or that you can be more targeted in your services, you can be more it's not only targeted, is nuanced in the type of services. No more blanket blanket service, which is actually goes towards current discussion in our field of equity. How do you? It's not equality, it's equity. How do you make sure that that people receive what it is that they need to take a step forward? So in both cases, you show that, and the potentials are huge. The potential of gathering all that data and getting that level of detail can also be used to manipulate and to create other issues within the bigger system. So it's always kind of this balancing act. And I guess there are no what's the term? In French it's garde-fou, but there's no things keeping you from going outside of the acceptable or the ethical. Yeah, exactly. Are there any of that within AI? Are we working towards putting together these limitations for to AI to go beyond the ethical?
Again, the question is, what is ethical? Because what is ethical for me is not ethical for you. We are in two different regions. I'm in Europe, you're in Asia, right? So what is ethical for Asia and its big continent is not ethical for Europe. It's a big continent, right? So ethic has to be defined, from a human race point of view. And I'm really talking about human race, which means that it's not government, it's not corporation. It's like, a universal vote. People need to be aware that, they need to have like this right, not to impose it into them. That doesn't work. So the point is to kind of have this framework. Yeah, the European Union is working on something. UK as a whole is working. The GCC region, everyone is working on something. But does it really kind of say, okay, we're not doing this or we're doing that because of this? I'm really skeptical, because whatever comes from governments versus corporation, it always benefits someone in the room. So a war benefits some people, genocide kind of do something, benefit some people. A crisis, an economic crisis benefits some people. A healthcare, crisis like we knew in COVID benefits some people and corporations. So we need to understand who is going to benefit from having a less framework for AI versus a stronger one for it and for its actions on the ground.
Bouncing back on what you were saying, actually, it's a great segue. With all the data that's being gathered, that potentially can be gathered by AI, can it empower marginalized communities? Because we would then know where the marginalized communities are, what kind of services they need, etc. Can it empower them with new tools for change? So I guess my question is, how do you see it helping these communities gain access to resources, information, and a little bit more power, I guess?
There is no power, because the power is not in the hand of marginalized communities. It's in the hand of rich people and corporation.
Okay.
And unless you make, unless they make money out of you.
Yeah.
Why? I'll probably be like a dystopian person here and will say, okay, Hunger Game. You have the big city, so these guys decide, which means all the corporation deciding. And if you are, if you are on their map making money for them, they will get to you. If you're not, that's the last things. Very simple example is today, we know that the Asian region is slowing down in terms of growth, and China particularly. So now the brands need to find a new El Dorado. What's the next? Africa. So that's easy. They're going to start looking at Africa, despite the fact that I've been voicing African resources talent for the last 10 years. Now people are like, oh, I digested what you said. No, darling, you didn't digest it. You just figure out that we have the money. We are consumers and we can pay. That's it. That's as easy as that. So I would probably say that talking about the role of AI is when African continent as a continent and countries within the continent, and even Latin America, because they're also the minority, start gathering their data, not sharing it for the sake of sharing it, but understanding what the value it brings from a healthcare, from an economy point of view. They will understand from a political point of view, they will understand how to analyze it, how to mine it, and how to work on it to
Yeah.
give them power. Very
Yeah.
simple example is if the African unions, if the Latin American unions for healthcare, not the United Nation part, but like, let's say the all the healthcare system kind of come together and start sharing this data and see the patterns in terms of what kind of the top illness we have as African, what our DNA, what are our weaknesses, then we can push healthcare. We can be preventive, so we will lose less money and we will fund more things that can prevent things for our healthcare, which means that we reverse the machine in the good way. But also we have the power then to say to healthcare or pharmaceutical companies, guys, this is what we need. We don't need you to push your paracetamol or whatever. We need you to push more the vitamin C or the D, not the D because we have a lot of suns. So kind of like going through different things. So this is exactly how power, but because governments today, institutions and people do not know the power of data, their data, we're going to still be powerless in front of big corporation.
We need to there needs to be a more just governance system in the countries that you're talking about, because it's exactly the same thing as in, the global majority countries. Is exactly the same as in the global north, what's called the global north. If it's not corporation, it's going to be the political elite. It's going to be, so we need to also sort out the governance system that is just, that the judicial system is working to be able to protect the data, protect where it's coming from, to be able to then analyze it, etc. So the element of trust, I guess, is going to be paramount as we move forward with this development, and for it to really get a hold on the African continent, which I agree with you is the next El Dorado. Now, I want to switch gear a little bit and come back to some of the funky stuff that you do with gaming, experiential learning. How can we harness AI to model behavior at scale? So my question was, I'm thinking about the role of AI in modeling positive behavior, but because I think that there's a real it could be a real springboard and a fantastic way of even simulating the possible scenarios when we're designing a policy or something like that. And so if AI can model behavior at scale, but how do we ensure that it has the nuances of human experience? And how can AI encourage positive social behaviors without, oversimplifying the complex human dynamics that we interact with? So how can game show the complexity and be as close as possible to reality, so that what they're proposing in terms of scenarios that people can choose and to learn from is actually not, unrealistic?
So just to kind of divide the question into two parts. The first one is gamification mechanism. So
Okay.
this is not games. This is how we gamify a journey, which means that how do I play with your brain and your emotion to drive you where I want? And that's what emotional marketing is about. Because a lot of marketeers today talk a lot about data, but you forget emotional marketing, because this is what drives you.
Yeah.
And to drive a human being, you have to tap into emotion. And one of the questions to the audience is, remember in the last 12 months, which campaign you really remember? You won't remember a brand one, you will remember an emotional one.
An emotional one. Yeah. Yeah.
Here we go. So this is
Yeah.
exactly the real marketers. This is exactly what they're going to do. The
Yeah.
fake one, will just kind of follow the trends and click on, oh, we have more open rate, blah, 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 blah. But the real ones that you will remember in the last 50 years are the ones who played with your heart. And then they kind of get into your brain. And that's the problem, is we cannot change human by talking to the brain. We need to talk to the heart. So this is the gamification journey. And that's where like you will use gamification mechanism to change people mindset in doing something. So ecology, environmental friendly, to say, okay, this is better to do this than to do this, but I'm not going to tell you that, because if you don't put, if you use a plastic straw, you kind of destroying this little white bears in the in the Antarctic or wherever it is in the North Pole. So, the connection that makes your heart change your behavior. So this is kind of where like the strong part of it. When it comes to the pure gaming, the gaming can be used to kind of, play second layers on how we interact on a daily basis for chores, for things that we have to do, or we need to do, or we don't want to do, but we have to do. So it's kind of like, and then you have a variety of them. And as we were discussing last time, I keep screaming like 100% of the population who have kids at home, right? What's the screaming is about? Please do your homework. You have a test tomorrow. Make sure that you go back to what the homework that you have been asked to do. And all the chores of, can you take your socks from upstairs or from your rooms or bathroom to the washing machine? Basically, we can sort the first one easily by connecting homework to games, because all the kids today, and please do not tell me some people say, well, my kids do not play. Please, this is a big lie. And don't lie to me. You're lying to yourself. So if they are not doing it in your, in your presence, they will do it with friends on their phone. So the reality is, let us embrace this rather than put it in a box and say, no, don't do this, don't do this. Because between bracket, a lot of people are like, oh, games are not good, they are addictive. No, addiction is a problem. Like drugs, like alcohol. The game to be addictive means that your kids has a problem, that something is showing. That's psychology. That's not me. That's not me defending the games. The fact that you keep watching, for hours and hours something, and you're getting addicted to it doesn't mean that it's the problem of the content, is the problem of the person, right? And that's easy. But back to the example of the game itself with the kids is, again, I was talking to my schools, my son's schools, and basically I was like, guys, for the math and all the English literature and geography and whatever, is it possible to connect it to, a game, which means that if they do half an hour, whatever you're asking them every day, they win something at the end of the week, right? So this kind of reward can be redeemed into their favorite game. It can be like Sims, it can be Fortnite, it can be Roblox, it can even be like, what you call it, like Temple Runner, whatever the game is. Any kids have their preferences. How easy will that be for all the parents? Instead of shouting, screaming, it's like you lose. You're gonna have the new skin for free. So it's up to you. Exactly. So this is the whole education system. Do they want to take the step? Oh, probably yes. Do they know how to do it? No. But because the games are seen as the black box that, oh my God, it's a big hole, I don't want to get there. But at the same time, using it, if you tell them AI, they will jump on it. But what is really AI within the games? That's where that, I like to kind of bring this big names, but I know that it's an empty shell, because AI is just an algorithm. If you have studied, statistic in the school, and you have had like a brain in terms of kind of going through the algorithm, for you it's like a super easy to understand how we build up, correlating XYZ and etc. and building this model. For the other people, it would be like, oh, that's kind of, magic. No, if I can put this model, let's say that 80% of the kids will use this, then I will kind of incentivize them with XYZ. And then the older one will be incentivized with other things. So the schools will have their higher, I would probably say, ranking.
Yasmina, you talked about gamification. Now let's talk a little bit about how games. Do you see any way that using games through AI can really help jumpstart and kind of make exponential gains within the field of the social sectors with regards to attitude, knowledge, and behavior change, for example. That's something
Absolutely.
a lot of people work on.
Absolutely. I think that people miss the fact that when you talk about gaming, they only focus on the word game. They don't focus on a microeconomy. What I mean by that is Korea, a few years back, they decided that they wanted to put and fund, a gaming hub. Today, they are one of the biggest skills in terms of infrastructure, because games is about what? It's like we're back to the healthcare, and I'm not picking on them on purpose, guys. It's just a kind of conversation. But let's be very open to that. Basically, what happened is when you talk about gaming, you have the infrastructure, which means the data center, the cloud. So all these are like profession, jobs, with partners. So you're kind of creating a need, and you're kind of creating people who need to kind of be hired for this job. You have all the admin people for all these partners, marketing people, sales and development people, right?
Yeah.
Beyond the game itself, to build a game, you need to have artists, various artists, architect, to kind of advise you if you're doing like this Assassin's Creed. Assassin's Creed is based into the old Spain, right? So you had to go and take pictures of all the Spanish things, heritage and so on. Imagine you're doing it for Algeria or Tunisia or Morocco, just as the neighbors, how this architect will have to work on this. They will have to take picture, to digitalize it, and then to go to the heritage and museums to kind of go back to see the features, the outfit. So all this is an additional work to then digitalize it as a reward or as an items into a game, right? And then you have the gamification mechanism, which is another structure, right? And then you have people who are writing the stories or the challenges or whatever it is. So you have also writers, art kind of copywriters, and then you have a publisher, which is another platforms that kind of push, and it has its own ecosystem. So at the end of the day, you have a microeconomy within an economy that could be leading your entire economy.
Yep.
You see, so it's kind of a lot of little things. I was kind of put a picture of little slow rivers joining all together to make a big one, and then it kind of go and start being an ocean instead of just being a small pond. But because people have this image of addiction, people are just shooting, or no, everyone, like, Candy Crush, everybody played it on their phone, right? I personally, my favorite one is like the words tree. So during the holidays, you will think, oh God, no, I love to have my Kindle and I love to have the word tree. And I kind of challenge my kids. It's like, okay, I'm finishing this round within, 40 minutes. It's up to you. I'm at the level A. So that makes my brain, because the brain is a muscle. And you don't only have, as some people call it, the bad games. You have a variety of them.
Yeah. And Yasmina, because there's gaming for entertainment purposes. So I kind of shut down my brain is not, lit up. But those kind of interactive games where you have to make choices, for example, then it's totally interactive and all your brain is functioning right at that point. Because I think there's a distinction between gaming for entertainment and gaming for behavior change. Or are they actually all behavior change? We just call them differently.
Do we really know what behavior change is? Do we really use it? I don't think so. Because right now, in my last 20 years of work, the only way that I have touched upon change behavior is in the L&D, learning and development. And they didn't do it the right way. And I know some ex-colleagues would be like, oh, but we did. Really? Because most of the people, when they go onto their digital learning platforms profile, it's more of a sacrifice of their time rather than enjoying doing it.
Yeah.
So do we really change people? No, they have to do it because he want to be the manager next year, or he want to kind of get the good, he doesn't want to have the HR in their back. You have to finish it. You don't do it because you love what you're doing and you want to evolve and thrive, because that's the change of behavior. Do we kind of use the change behavior and school for people to kind of stop bullying? No, we give them speeches. We lecture them. There are no games in changing behavior. We pretend in the nice way to put this word, but the reality is not. So 99% of the games are entertaining, and I would probably say they are there to kind of fill the time that instead of, some of us will spend it watching TV, some others are going onto their social to kind of check what the others are doing, and some will spend it on games. So it depends on what we really call, games and change behavior.
Yep. Yep. Okay. So clarifying that, but I really like how you presented all the ecosystem that it creates and jobs potentially it creates and all the necessities. So you would have people from this field working together with the story writers, the script writers, to actually come up and map out what are the behavior change that we're after, or attitude or knowledge gains that we're after, and then you kind of do the arc of your story and you model, maybe one of the characters could model positive behaviors, etc. So I can see how those can be brought in together. So before we close, let me ask you some questions, and I want a yes/no answer.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, very quick. All right, so Yasmina, is the world ready for AI-driven social change, or do we need more time?
No.
Is the world ready for social change?
No.
Okay. Can AI ever truly understand the complexities of human culture?
No.
Mm-hmm. Would you trust an AI to make a tough call on a social justice matter?
Yes.
Could AI-powered games actually be more effective than traditional social programs?
No.
Perfect. It's interesting. Your answers are, for someone who works in that field, it's quite sobering, actually. So that's very lucid.
I will trust the machine because it's logical. It will take a logical approach to a problem. It doesn't have zero emotion. And as you said it, if someone has killed someone else, it will be like, death sentence. There is no, but maybe he was not there. He was not logical. It doesn't matter. If the earth has to be saved by exterminating human, yes, it will say, let's exterminate them because you are the virus. Well, we will be like, no, we're not the virus. We can change. Really? It's been 100 years. We keep doing the same things. So in terms of being really logical, AI can be very logical. Again, depend on who is prompting it behind and to which benefit. But overall, 90% of the time, it kind of has this logical part of it. The other part is human. Unless we know that we are dying as a species, will not make the social call in terms of changing, because we as a mindset has been set up in the last 200 years is all about money. The American imperialism has really rooted the next generation to come to look at, for the money, nothing else.
Wow. Well, that's very direct, and unfortunately, people, of course, it's not very hopeful. I mean, unless we really find new systems of doing things. So that's us for the conversation. Thanks so much for your call, Yasmina, for being here, for your insights. I hope you've the questions prompted you to ask yourselves other things that you may not think about because you're in a totally different sector. But as you say, you're a human, you're a mother, you're you live those things, so you have the double perspective in there as well. So that was really cool to have. Thanks a lot, and we'll talk again soon.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining me for another episode of ReThink Social Change Podcast. I hope you got a lot of value and actionable insights from today's show. Would love if you take a minute to leave us a review. And if you work on social change and are up for the challenge, reach out. And before you go, be sure to subscribe so you're the first to know when we release a new episode. Till then, be the change.